Experts have warned details revealed in Prince Harry's tell-all memoir, Spare, could compromise the security of the royal family. Joining us live is former Royal Protection Officer Simon Morgan. Now, Simon, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. So how much do you believe that security for the royal family has been compromised with the release of this book?
Good morning, Peter. It certainly needs to be looked at as to kind of what are the effects of these statements from an intelligence perspective. Now, analysts need to be going through and seeing what influence that is going to actually have on people to do UK assets harm.
What troubles you most about what's been said so far?
I think for me, it's the Taliban, the statements coming out of Afghanistan. The fact that calling the Duke of Sussex a war criminal, he should be tried, as well as kind of being a coward for some of the things that he said in his book that he's undertaken. You know, that in turn over the weekend saw here in the UK some of the reactive Islamist fundamental people talking about doing harm to British military assets around the world. And again, that's the influence piece that we need to look at to see how that threat and risk profile has actually changed.
So given that the war in Afghanistan is over, why would he or other officers who served alongside Prince Harry be concerned? Or why could they be targeted?
I think it's bringing it back. It's bringing the war in Afghanistan back, the war in terror back into people's minds again. And when you look at the influences that state that British assets need to be harmed now, that is where His Majesty's Armed Forces need to look at their personal security, their security of their regiments and their bases around the world, to see if these people have actually stated anything that somebody now will actually go out and do harm to the British assets. I think it's the connotations that is attached to it. The threat to the UK currently sits at substantial, meaning an attack is likely. Next stage up is severe, meaning an attack is highly likely. So when the analysts look at it, they need to see what is the chatter, what are people talking about doing, how has it affected people by giving those statements and bringing those memories back.
What about some of these other claims from a security perspective that Harry has talked about? Things like that he was wearing electronic trackers, that he had a panic alarm that he was always carrying with him, that he also identified certain parts of Balmoral where the monarch would be sleeping. Is any of that a cause for alarm, do you think, by making all of that public?
It is, because very much royal security always has the standard statement attached to it. We do not comment on royal security. So putting things in the public domain changes that profile. And again, when we look at threat and risk profile, we need to ascertain as to whether the threat is actual or perceived and whether the risk is specific or generic. So when you're starting to put that information out now into the public domain, people who wish to do the UK and its assets harm do now have some information. And how that information is developed is really important from a security professional's perspective, from a protection officer's perspective, because you're always there seeking to reduce that risk. You've got to put mitigation in place and contingencies. So the less information that is out there is always better from our perspective.
Yeah, sure. I mean, because we have in the past, right, we've seen nutters or people who have tried to scale the fences of Buckingham Palace. They've breached security. Would this information be interesting to them?
Very much so. I mean, we focused on the statements of the war in Afghanistan and what the Taliban has said, but we also need to look at the fixated individual, someone who now this has set something in their mind working that they wish to do some harm to members of the royal family. Also, the single cause issue, which will use the current media frenzy to highlight their issue. And all these things as a protection team, you've now got to factor in. You know, it's a tough enough job as it is without, really bringing all these things to the surface.
So as a former member of that protection team as well, Simon, is it regrettable, in your view, what Harry has published?
I think it is regrettable because it does change the profile of risk, not just against the Sussexes, but against the royal family. And like I said, all the connotations of everything that His Majesty's government stand for, His Majesty's Armed Forces, His Majesty's Police Service. All those connotations are UK assets, and that's where now we need to understand what the current threat and risk profile is from people who wish to do us harm.
So how would it change? I know you just said that you're going to be seeking, well, the Royal Protection Officers are going to be trying to seek more information now, but how would it change their day-to-day assignments?
Well, you're going to have to put potentially more people into the mix to protect members of the royal family now when they're back out in public.
Right.
They've very much come back from their Christmas holidays, and any event now that has a royal connotation, that is going to have to be looked at as to see whether any of these statements have changed that profile of that event.
Simon Morgan, live from London. Appreciate it as always, your time. Thank you. We'll talk to you again soon.